Every year, tens of thousands of drivers lose their license because of inability to pay a fine to the RMV. In 2023, there have been 40,000 people charged with either driving with a suspended license or driving without a license. And most of those stem from an inability to pay an underlying debt. Debt-based driving restrictions have nothing to do with road safety, and they have everything to do with punishing poverty. One of the biggest challenges that low-income drivers face is compounding debt from the RMV. If you can't pay your initial fine, within 20 days you get hit with a late fee. 20 days after that, your license is suspended, and you have to pay a reinstatement fee on top of everything. In about a month and a half, your debt to the RMV will triple. That's loan shark behavior. Look, I'm not some great economist. I paid a lot of money for law school and then I joined the public defenders. But if somebody owes you money and you want them to pay you back, you don't take away their means of making that money. Because low-income drivers are dependent on driving, a lot of them, to make a living. And there is no hardship license available for low-income, for when you lose your license for inability to pay. However, if that same person went out and drank and drove and got arrested, they could apply for a hardship license. So if anybody tells you that these suspensions are based on road safety, think about that. There are a lot of people, when they lose their license, they have no choice but to continue to drive. If they don't drive, they can't work, they can't make money, they can't pay their rent, they can't buy groceries. They can't survive, their families can't survive. So is that a choice? But if they do drive and they do get caught, they get arrested, their car gets towed, and then they have court fees, additional fines, and impound fees, all on top of money they couldn't pay back to begin with. And this can happen over and over again. I've talked to people who have spent years and thousands upon thousands of dollars to try to get their licenses back for what was at one point a $100 ticket. But let's also not forget about the indignity of being brought into a criminal court, having to go in front of a judge with the threat of jail time, all because you couldn't pay a fine? That's dehumanizing. And there are some judges who will be understanding, they're compassionate. They'll dismiss the charge on you, but they can't do anything about the fines from the RMV. Judges have no authority to reduce the fines or to waive the fines. They stay with you. And then there are some judges who still think that they can shame people out of poverty. They'll take a look at some clients and say, well, look at those sneakers, they look pretty new. Maybe they should have paid that RMV fine off, right? And I want to be clear about who this law is affecting. 100% are poor, and they're disproportionately from communities of color. Because isn't that who always bear the brunt of our systemic injustices? So what can we do? So there's good news. Now you guys need some good news now? So since 2017, 24 states plus the District of Columbia have passed legislation to end the practice of debt-based driving restrictions. And we have two heroes in our legislature right now, Representative Fluka Oakley and Senator Sear. Yeah, do that. And they're trying to make Massachusetts the 25th state to join them. They filed H 3314 and Senate Bill 2227, what we're calling the Debts in Driving Act. So what does that bill do? There are three principal reforms in this legislation. Number one, stop suspending licenses that are based on non-safety related reasons. What is a non-safety related reason? If you can pay your way out of a suspension, it is not related to safety. An unpaid speeding ticket is not related to safety. Just because you have $100 in your pocket does not make you a safer driver than someone who doesn't. Plus, if you make a habit out of speeding, you get penalized. If you get caught speeding 3 times in a span of 2 years, your license automatically gets suspended. Those types of laws are not going to change with the passage of this bill. Provision number 2, fee reduction or waivers for financial hardship. This just makes sense. If you don't have money, you can't pay money. But even though the suspension penalty will be going away, the non-renewal penalty will stay. So people will have to take advantage of these hearings, because this is a change from earlier drafts of this legislation. Certain legislators were concerned that if there was no penalty, that people would just stop paying their fines even if they could. Now, we spent 2 years telling people that's not true, and to look at other states who have passed similar legislation. People are mostly honest, and people will pay their debts. But I will be honest with every one of you here. If there were no penalties, I would never pay a parking ticket again for the rest of my life. But there will be penalties, there will be repercussions, but removing the suspension penalties gives people who can pay time to pay, and people who can't pay time to take advantage of these financial hardship hearings. And provision number 3, implement an electronic reminder from the RMV. Do you guys know the RMV still only uses the post office for all of their communication about licenses being suspended? My mailbox is basically a way station to my recycling bin. I lose 50% of the holiday cards that people send me because it gets swept up in junk mail. But if you're watching at home, not yours, you have a lovely family, your kids are getting so big, but some people, when they get pulled over, they have no idea the license has even been suspended. But because they never check their mail. But every one of you check your phones. You have them on you 99% of the time. I've seen this person check them 3 times since I started talking. This bill would require the RMV to send a text message with a link telling you how much you owe, a link to pay the fine, and how to appeal the fine, or hardship instructions. And I know I'm out of time, but I need to show this last thing and ask you to do one thing. Please call your legislators. Ask them to co-sponsor H3314 and Senate Bill 2227. There are 300 of you watching right now and here. If all of you call tomorrow, I guarantee it will create a buzz. Let's do this together. Thank you guys so much.